In this video, I want to talk about some more mistakes that freelancers make when trying to make money online. Since I review cameras and lenses and I talk about photography and filmmaking a lot, I've been interacting with you guys in the comments, and I've noticed that a lot of you are trying to get into photography, into filmmaking, into making money with your camera. And from my personal experience, the best way to get into this is with freelancing. And this is especially the case if you can do freelancing remotely. If you can travel and do photography in different locations, edit, which is what I do. I do a lot of video editing and I travel whilst doing so. For example, right now I'm in Portugal. Why? Because I felt like it. I just booked an Airbnb and a flight and here I am. I'll stay here for a while and then I'll go somewhere else. And that's one of the beautiful aspects of being a full-time freelancer. Now let's cover some of these mistakes, and I'm going to cover 3 today. The first one is TLDR, too long didn't read. Even though I'm a freelancer myself, I've often hired freelancers on platforms such as Upwork. And one of the common mistakes that I see is that people talk about themselves far too much. The application is far too long, which makes sense from your perspective as the freelancer, because you're thinking, okay, I really want this job. I really want to impress this person. How do I do so? Well, I just tell them everything about me, and then they'll be so impressed with everything that I've done that they'll just hire me. And whilst this might be true, whilst you might have a very impressive portfolio that would get you hired, the reality is that as the employer, you're going to get so many applications that it's just impractical for you to read every single one of them in depth. I've had job applications on Upwork where I would post the job looking for a video editor, and I would receive 100 applications. 100 people would send me their proposals, and a lot of them would take me like 5 minutes to read because there'd be so much information, so much to look for. 5 times 100 is 500 minutes, which is what, like 8 hours? Do you think realistically that someone who's never met you is gonna spend that time reading for your application? Maybe if it's the first one, maybe if you're really quick and you apply on your first person, they might read it. But if the ad has been up for a little while, and plus platforms like Upwork have this feature where as the freelancer you can bid to get your application higher. So you can basically use these credits that you get from Upwork, or you buy them, and you can get your application higher. So even if you apply first, the odds of your application being first on their list is kind of unlikely. Now there's this meme that's been floating around for years, which is you write someone a letter and it's really long and you apologize. You say, I'm sorry, I couldn't write you a shorter letter. I didn't have the time. And what that implies is being very verbose is easy. Just writing a lot is very easy, but writing in a very concise manner, it takes time, it takes effort, because you have to be selective. You only have so much space. So you have to figure out how you present certain concepts and what you say in order to make the application as short as possible. So next time you apply for a job online as a freelancer, stop for a moment and think, what does this person want? What the person that's paying me to do this job, what do they want? What is their goal? And lead with that. Figure out what they need, lead with that, give them a teaser of what you could do for them, and invite them to have a chat with you. Whenever I applied, I would say something like, if you want to have a chat, no strings attached, just want to discuss the project, just get in touch and we'll talk about it. And realistically, if you can get the client to respond to you, the odds of them hiring you are dramatically increased, like 80%, 90%. It's incredible. So it's more important to tease and to get the client to respond to you. And once you've done that, the odds of you getting hired are immeasurably increased. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps out. And now let's continue. Tip number 2, not charging enough. I know. This is weird, right? You're thinking, how can I compete with all of these super experienced freelancers? How can I draw attention? I know, I'll charge less. And whilst this can be an okay strategy for your very first client, we'll talk about that in a different video in the future, charging less, especially if you're experienced, if you have work on the platform, is actually a negative. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I post a job, and this has happened many times. I post a job and I get 50 applications. And most people would charge me around $500 to complete the job. So I get a sense of, okay, it will cost me around $500. And someone steps in and they say, I'll do it for $50. In that moment, red flags will appear. How is it that all of these people who are talented and they have experience on the platform, they'll do it for $500? How come this person can do it for $50? And the immediate assumption is going to be that you're not very good. There's a sense of desperation in charging too little. And much like with dating, this isn't a dating channel, but there's a lot of similarities between business and dating. If you're desperate, if the other person can smell desperation on you, you're going to fail. That's just how it works. You can't be desperate. And charging too little is a sign of desperation. So next time you apply for a job, I would actually recommend try and overcharge, or whatever you feel will be overcharging, because chances are the reason you're not getting enough clients is because you're not charging them enough money. You're applying, you're thinking, I'm going to do them a favor, I'm going to charge them less money, they'll be very grateful. But the reality is that they're looking at your application and they're wondering why you would charge so little. So counterintuitively, charging more might get you a lot more work. And if you're not getting any work, what's the harm? Just charge more. Just charge an audacious amount, what you feel is an audacious amount of money, and you might actually find that you're going to get a lot more responses, because what's going to happen is the client will see that you're charging a lot and they'll think, this person's good. And they might think, I might try and negotiate with them. Let me try and negotiate with them. Let me try and see if I can get them to do it for a bit less. And then you can negotiate. And instead of doing it for the full price, you'll do it for 80% because you have some extra time that week and you're feeling generous. It's always better to start here and negotiate here than to start here and never get in. And this leads us to our third point, and it's a point that ties both of the previous points together, and that is perspective. Whenever you're dealing with a client in the context of freelancing, business in general, you have to use perspective. You have to always think about the perspective of the person that you're dealing with. How are they viewing the situation? What are their needs? What are their wants? Because you as a freelancer, you know what you want. You want to make some money. You want to make some money. You want to travel the world. You want to take photos. You want to do cool and interesting things and be financially okay whilst doing it. Whatever decision you're making, whether it's how to apply, what to write in the application, how to negotiate, you always have to view it from the perspective of the client, because they have the money and they decide who gets hired. So when you write the application, spare them the thousands of pages of your biography and lead with what they're looking for and tease them so that they contact you. And once they contact you, your odds of getting hired are immeasurably higher. Instead of offering to do it for very little money, which might make them reticent to hire you, overshoot. Ask for an amount of money that is too much for them, that they would never be able to pay you for that. But because you're talking, you're negotiating, everything is a negotiation. Now that you're talking, maybe you don't do it for the full amount, maybe you do it for 80% or 70%, but you've now been hired. So always consider the perspective of the client. Okay, I think that's enough for today. I've hopefully imparted some wisdom onto you. Your homework for today, yes, I'm giving you homework, is to think about these points that I've just talked about. I want you to think about how to get your point across in the application using far fewer words. And I want you to consider and think how much you want to overcharge. Are you brave enough to overcharge? Are you brave enough to say, I'm going to charge 5 times more than I'm currently asking for, and just see where it leads you? You know, maybe 5 times is too much. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe you have to charge 10 times more. You will have to figure that bit out for yourself, which is why it's part of your homework. And always consider the point, the perspective of your client. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.